facilitator could be somebody who's a cultivator, nurturer, a caterer of tasty ingredients and foods, a host. Lots of different ways of thinking about facilitators. These are just a few of them. And when we're online, what we're actually having to do is to mediate relationships between three different aspects: disciplinary content, human connection, and the technologies that we're using. So we are working with all three of those, and sometimes moving more to one end or another, depending on our role. So if we're online teachers, as well as online facilitators, we may sometimes be more at the disciplinary content end, but we always need to be thinking about the human connection and about the technology. In our model of training online facilitators in the Facilitating Online course, which is an 8-week completely online course, we have 5 different areas of capability: supporting online learning, social skills, online communication skills, technical skills, and social networking skills. And clearly what's happening over the last couple of years is that those skills have to include engaging creatively and constructively with the opportunities of AI to support online facilitation as well. So for the panel, there will be several different questions. Firstly, asking the panelists about their most valuable learning from the Facilitating Online course. Then, how did their online facilitation skills help them and their students to get through the pandemic? Thirdly, how do you use online facilitation in your work currently? Fourth, can you tell us about innovations in online facilitation that you've introduced or action you've taken to train new online facilitators? And the fifth question, what advice do you have for new online facilitators or people who are just thinking about getting into online facilitation one way or another? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can then see Sylvanus. I see lots of reconnecting is happening. Irene is
very limited use of online technology. Effectively deliver. And I think I felt like I was in a safe space, to sort of co-create with people, who had varied amounts of skill and backgrounds and, had worked in different types of learning environments. We could share, we could debate. I think I really took value out of those engagements. I think I marveled also at the way that the course was put together, because I think there was a lot of thought put into, the use of something like a Padlet to introduce yourself at the beginning, and knowing later on we'd sort of dive deeper into the use of that tool in further activities. So I think it was a really nice humanizing space for me. I found it very immersive, very engaging as well, and just gave me just the right amount of stitch that I needed at the time. And I think that course sort of allows you to take it as far as you can. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things I did take away from it that I try to apply regularly in my design approach, to the course I'm facilitating is finding a balanced use of asynchronous and synchronous learning methodologies. You can't just do everything one way, but you also don't need to use all the tools in the toolbox. So it's really just about.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll bring you back several times for other questions too. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Prinavin. About your most valuable learning from the course, your juicy takeaways from the course, Prinavin. Thank you, Prinavin. Let's move on to Sylvanus. I see you're back with us.
Yes.
Welcome, Sylvanus.
I'm back, Tony. Sorry, my network seems unstable, but I'll try. Can you hear me?
Thank you. So can you tell us about some of your most valuable learning from the course?
Yeah, I think the course puts you as a facilitator, or it raises this issue of the facilitator being the learning designer, with the aspect of beginning with the end in mind, I would call it, because as I went through the course, I remember the first introductory bit of it where people were given a chance to comment about anything and everything, and it was chaos inside there. But in a short while, of course, then the facilitator comes in and starts guiding the process, and then you quickly see settlement in the room, and there seems to be direction that is being given in the process, and then you can start picking the learning bits in the process. So for me, the stressing role of the facilitator, and of course, the learning design bit beginning with the end in mind, I think are very important points that I carry away. Thanks.
Thank you, Sylvanus. Yeah. I'm just going to share to see our next question. Okay, and our next question is, how did just allow for reconnecting time? Okay, I see everyone's reconnected now. This is very good. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that. So it's like when I switch back to presentation mode, what happens is that it kind of throws people off and out. Yeah, okay, so we're reconnecting again. So maybe, Prinavin, maybe you can tell us about how your online facilitation skills helped you and your students to get through the pandemic. meanwhile, and tell us about Oh, good. It looks like many of us are back, which is excellent. So maybe you can tell us about how you got through the pandemic and help your students get through the pandemic with online facilitation. Thank you, Prinavin. Let's move on to Silvenos.
Yes, I would say this came at a point when the policy was still against this. So I must thank the pandemic in a good way for accelerating the policy approvals. But immediately this came, and I remember the Senate meeting that approved online teaching. The students were a bit hesitant, and I remember some of them confronting me. I was also head of a department, asking me, if we learn online, how will we graduate? Will we still graduate online, you know? And so the buy-in from the student side was a bit slow. Of course, for me, the course had prepared me to kind of just pick this up and go on with it. So slowly there was a shift. And I remember the first sessions were quite involving for both ends. But with the time when it settled, I would say there was the curiosity bubble. So the students were more enthusiastic to actually on board. And then followed a session of fatigue, I would call it, because the requests were enormous. You know, there'll be these sessions where they would ask for you to now facilitate at night. But of course, yeah, the first thing is being the pushing side, we were willing, of course. There was no kind of regulation of when, because when they were willing to learn, then you only joined them so that you can push this process. Of course, with the policy support, things moved, settled very quickly. We had also the challenges with assessment, I would say. There was torn between whether people to come physically for the exam or do it online. So we had our first challenges with that, but thank God we had a good technical support. So that went very well. And yeah, as we speak, we have a class remotely run, a northern part of Kenya. For those who are familiar, the section is a bit remote, so we still experience challenges with net, but it works for those who are working and are also trying to build their skills or enhance their knowledge in the areas of nutrition and dietetics, which is also highly employable there, because nutrition in emergency employs quite a number of people there with basic certificate all the way. So they continue retooling and retraining to just enhance their qualifications for better performance. Thanks.
Thank you, Silvenos. And I'm going to bring in Hawa next. And note that one of the most important things for me about Hawa being on the panel is that Hawa is deeply experienced in work in the training sector. Unlike others on the panel who are based in universities, Hawa's work over many years has been in the training sector. So how did your online facilitation skills help you and your trainees get through the pandemic, Hawa? And your students, because you've moved around a bit.
Thank you so much, Tony. I actually related quite a bit to what Prinavin is saying, and Sylvanus as well. I think we experienced very similar challenges. I must say, though, that we had attended the program well before the pandemic, not realizing, or little did we know the importance of what, the skills that we took away and how that was going to impact us. I think just, what could have been a very disempowering situation for us as facilitators who are predominantly facilitating in a face-to-face setting, just became something that I felt empowered enough to tackle. And in a time of uncertainty, I think your learners or your students, they're facing so much uncertainty that I think your role becomes that of somebody who provides some form of certainty in that environment that you create. So I think we were very mindful about creating that space to learn, but also for people to just check in, as Prinavin said, and just sort of like, how are you doing? What are you worrying about right now? How can we set you at ease? And then moving mindfully into the learning. I think there was a lot of thought that needed to go into also adjusting the timing and the pace of things, the resources that we were using. And I think I took my cue from the students or the learners. And I think that is the important, aspect to think about. I think for the students, they took pride in the fact that they were still able to complete a qualification in a very uncertain time. And so something as simple as Sylvanus was saying, the assessment aspect, like how are we going to get through the assessment? I think the time that we took was more in briefing that assessment clearly and thinking about the methods that we were going to use to support them in that, and then thinking about, okay, how are we going to physically get that assessment into the office during a lockdown period, for that to be able to happen. And so I think it was really, just the, I can't say we can thank the pandemic, but I can say we can thank the program for having equipped us with that ability, to support and provide that support in a very uncertain time.
Thank you, Khawa. What I'm hearing from many people here is that online do you have any insights or observations so far from what you've been hearing from the panel?
Thank you, Tony, and thank you for the panelists. I think what I'm hearing is the connection between the process that everybody went through in the facilitating online and during and after COVID, the way they used different ways in their own settings, what they had learned and how they used it to improve whatever was going to happen, and how they are continuing with their facilitating online in their own places of work. It also shows the connection between the higher education and the private sector and the non-government organization, how that also comes together. It doesn't matter which settings you are in, but the facilitating online looks like it brings people together, and there's a connection there that happened, and that is continuing. Yeah, back to you, Tony.
Thank you. And what's shining right through is the realization that learning is simultaneously both individual and social. Let's go on to the next question, which is, how do you use online facilitation in your work currently? Can we start with you, Sylvanus? How are you using online facilitation currently in your work?
Thank you, Tony. I think the higher education sector in the country is undergoing tremendous changes. And one of it is that the exchequer funding higher education generally will keep going down and down. So the universities are actually been challenged to go out of their way to prop up this kind of income stream, if I would call it. And so one of the things I've seen with this is more flex in learning. Yeah. And so we have sessions that we are teaching online, like I've given you the example of what we have in the northern Kenya, Turkana to be specific for those who may know. And then increasingly, I'm also seeing postgraduates are opting for online studies. And that for me works perfect, because then I have the skills and I'm able to take part in that. Specifically for me, something that I experienced is when I came from this course, I got so excited with it, and I had a team behind me that I also like encouraged to even register for the course, but locally we also mentor ourselves. So we have a small community of practice here within my university that they are now, because some of them were young faculty who are now moving out of the university to other opportunities elsewhere. But of particular interest to me are this group of my former students who are part of also the ethics training that I was initiating in the university for building the capacity of our IREC in the institution. And so linked to that, I also teach research methods to the whole school actually, which is an equivalent of the faculty. And the topic on research ethics is one that I've actually delegated to this team, because they actually got a better training on it through some capacity building project that was hosted by the Kenya Medical Research Institute with support from NIH. And so for me, when it comes to the research ethics topic, I get facilitation from all corners of Kenya, because the 3-4 guys that helped me co-teach this are now in various institutions in the country. And for me, it's a very good thing. It's something I can boldly attend a workshop knowing I will sit in there listening to what they do as I co-participate, but the co-teaching is with the 3 of them, and they have now designed it in a way that it actually just fits one after the other, you know. So for me, I would mention those 3, but slightly there's also the Nutrition Academy.
Just hold for a bit here, because I think you're moving into the next question already, and let's give other people a chance to answer this one. No, this is great. This is wonderful, because it really shows your passion. And that's something which is marvelous to hear communicated online. Let's move to Prinavin about how are you using online facilitation in your work currently? Thank you, Prinavin. Hawa, I know that you're not currently doing much online facilitation, so I'm going to ask you to move on to the next question about innovations in online facilitation and anything you've done that involves the training of new online facilitators or support of new online facilitators.
Thanks so much, Tony. I did have a small example of how we use online facilitation that I thought I could reflect on, if you're okay with that, and then I can just quickly run into this question. So we do have a mentorship program. I'm actually overseeing an actuarial program, and within that we offer actuarial mentorship to some of our bursary students, as well as students who are completing their professional designation as fellows. And we've realized the importance of this type of online support to mentors. So we often have online mentor connect sessions to empower them as mentors to have the opportunity to reflect, on their mentorship journey with their mentees and what they've learned. And that is, I suppose, a two-way street. We're offering that online facilitation, but we're also empowering our mentors with the ability to facilitate better mentoring sessions and to share with each other as well. So that's just one simple example. We also make quite extensive use of Meadow recently, which has just been an amazing place for ideation and new ideas. And that said, in terms of innovations within our space, we're very fortunate to have a group digital learning team that sort of supports us with resources. And we've sort of created a bit of a tribe within our space in Momentum Group. We call ourselves a digital learning community, and I think it's very similar to what Sylvina's mentioned as a community of practice. And so we sort of offer each other masterclasses and, really share resources with each other, ask for help. We involve each other in various work streams, using Meadow as an example to sort of build on ideas that can help each other. We have a strategic L&D forum as well, which just really allows us to stretch ourselves. I think some of the simple things we ask ourselves is every time we make a change, what barriers might we be creating in introducing something new, paying attention to, bringing creativity and humor into our spaces. So we sort of challenge ourselves as a digital learning community to ask those tough questions and, to sort of ideate further, and then what we're doing. So I think that's been working really well for us. And I think also the online space has naturally just actually become work and learning happens together at the same time. You're sort of using Meadow for the use of work, and then you're using Meadow for the use in learning, and it's sort of very synonymous. So I think we've been really fortunate also to be able to know that the tools we're using in the learning spaces are tools that people are using in our working spaces. So that's really great.
Thank you, Fawa. Those are lovely examples from the training sector, but I think also very instructive for people in higher education and further education. So I think what I'm noticing is that we're starting to run out of time a little bit. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, what advice do you have for new online facilitators? And there should be time for a round of brief contributions from the panelists. So let's start with Prinavin. Brief advice for new online facilitators, Prinavin.
Actually, I was going to give it to Sylvanus, but I can go. So methods community, there's the Session Lab community, there's the International Association of Facilitators, and many more. But more so, join sessions that are organized by one of us so that you can learn how they do these things. It's through seeing that we get better at what we do. The future of learning and a lot of other things is hybrid, if not online. So let's get ready for that. I know if someone told you that this was going to be an online conference some few years ago, you'd have said no, but now this is where we are going. So please be ready for this. Let's all get ready and be curious about AI, which is a very interesting part of being online. Back to you, Tony.
Thank you, Irene. Sylvanus, a few thoughts
Thanks,
from
Tony.
you.
I think I'll just add to what the colleagues have said about this being the new normal, keep updating and retooling. And then the element of flexibility, as I can illustrate, there are sessions I meet with my students for a presentation, and for some reason, none of them can upload their slides except one. So we quickly adjust and say, can you all send them by email to so-and-so who is able to upload them? They all have the right to upload and everything, but somehow they can't. So that flexibility works so that the one person can be trusted with the work, uploads it, displays as people follow the presentation. And then I've also noticed something very interesting with the students. Once in a while, they'll tell you because of tech challenge or network or whatever, so they cannot be on video like I am not able to be now. And then they'll tell you I'm joining with so-and-so and so-and-so, while really the two so-and-sos are not there. So you may have to be innovative to find out how are the other two so-and-sos also attending, you know. And then also the element of logging in without the video, you may be actually talking to yourself. So how do you keep it going so that some of the skills we really learned on this course? So I think for me, I'll close it there, but innovation, updating, retooling. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvanus. I think we're going to need to move a little bit faster now because we've pretty much exceeded our time. And I really want to thank our panelists, Khawa Lateef, Prinavin Govender, Sylvanus Konyole, and my co-convener, Irene Maweu, for your insights, your wisdom here. And to know that you are so much more than so-and-sos. And I love that phrase, Sylvanus. I'm going to just share a little bit more information before we go, very quickly. Hopefully this won't result in lots of people having to reconnect. Sharing now. Okay, so basically there is an open educational resource for facilitating online. You'll course, yes, indeed. Thank you, Leon Roots. I shall share many things. We have the Facilitating Online course, which we're planning to offer again next year. We're out of direct funding for it, so we can't sponsor places. But I think by this afternoon, I will have a form up for expressions of interest and a waiting list for next year as well. And that will be shared here in the chat also and in the presentation which the organizers will have available. And I shall thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully we weren't too far over time. Handing back to our conference chair.